Alright, ladies and gentlemen, a good morning, a good afternoon, and good evening to you wherever you are. We are coming to you live from Amsterdam from the round 3 of the ClogCon2017 team tournament, where we are featuring Team Ragnarok versus Team The Good, The Bad, and The Terrible Haircut. Team Ragnarok being famous for being very Norwegian, being composed mainly of Norwegians. I believe all 3 players of which were also on the Norwegian WTC team. And the game that we will be streaming will be between Johan Derland from Sweden, who's going to be playing Skorne, against Asbjørn Villersrud, who is going to be playing Circle. So we have a Skorne versus Circle matchup, and we also already know the casters. It's going to be an Una2 versus Makeda1 matchup. The Makeda1 list that Johan Derland bringing being the same list that was actually on stream also yesterday, and was observed there in action, laying a very severe smackdown on a Haley 2 list, featuring a assassination on an empty Haley 2 that thought she was safe until her colleagues triggered hyper-aggressive on Molly Khan, allowing him to walk straight into his opponent's army, make his way through the army, and without even needing a single sidestep, being able to one-shot kill a Haley 2 with no camp. So that game already showing us the kind of things that his list brings. And whilst we take a closer look at the table, we are going to take a look at the scenario that they'll be playing, the terrain that they'll have to deal with, and the list that they've brought. Taking a quick look at the scenario, we will be playing scenario number 2 from the SR 2017 Steamroller packet. We are going to be playing Standoff, which features 6 scenario elements. It features 2 flanking circular zones to be captured by infantry and warcasters, 2 rectangular zones on the center line facing each other that can be scored by warjacks, battle engines, and warcasters, and within each rectangular zone a friendly objective. Now, all of these zones can be scored for 1 CP, and the objective can also be destroyed for 1 CP, meaning that this is a scenario where the ability to score potentially 3 or even 4 or even 5 points in a single turn is actually possible. Obviously, scoring 5 points would involve capturing all 4 zones and destroying the enemy objective in the same turn. And if you're able to do that, then you probably have already won the game anyway. So taking a look at the terrain that the players are going to have to deal with during this game is we have a hill right here. We have another hill on the opposing side of the board. We have a line of sight blocking forest down here, touching 2 zones. A line of sight blocking obstruction right here, protecting the right-hand side square zone and the objective that lies behind it, and a patch of rubble down here in this bottom rectangular zone. And also, not to forget, we have a trench in this top circular zone for the circle player. So let's take a look at their lists now. Let's take a look first at the at Asbjørn's list. He is bringing Una2 in the Call of the Wild theme force, and he has brought 9 Skarsfeld Griffins, a Pureblood, a Free Wilder, a single Razor Wing, a single Gorax, and then 2 Blackclad Solos, which he gets for free, a single Swamp Gobbershev, and a unit of Shifting Stones, which he which he also gets for free. Yes, Frederick calling out support for his fellow countryman, Johan. Johan, Frederick says hello and wishes you good luck. No doubt bolstered by the recent encouragement from Frederick, I am sure that Johan is going to perform admirably during this game. He and his opponent are currently just talking through the specific rules and stats of their respective models. Just talking through their armies right now. So we're going to go and join them. And now we're going to take a look at Johan's army. He's just explaining kind of the abilities that they have. He is bringing Makeda1 in the Warhost theme force. He has a battle group that consists of a Mammoth, a Molokan, a Gladiator, a unit of Scarabs, which we can actually see in the bottom here. We also have a Kreia and an Agonizer, here and here. A max unit of Pain Handlers, a minimum unit of Croaks, which we can see right here. And Orin Midwinter. So here it's very important for this particular theme force. It's very important to mention the theme benefits, in that Johan is going to get an extra 2 inches of deployment, which you can see on the table right now, and you can see just how far that is. That extra 2 inches on top helps largely negate the fact that he's going second. I mean, look at the sheer table presence he has from his deployment zone. Now Una2 is going to be going first, and she has a legendarily fast army, so she's going to also be able to make up a lot of this terrain space very quickly on the top of one. But Una2 is not the only person in town who has long threat ranges in this particular matchup, because Makeda1 also has some incredible threat ranges of his own, and on a pure beast per beast basis, the Skorne War Beast should just rip right through through all these griffins. But time will tell if that's what happens, or whether or not we see a very quick and aggressive scenario play potentially out of Asbjorn to try and claim as much table space as possible. So another significant benefit that the Skorne player has from his theme force is the fact that all of his beasts gain hyper-aggressive. Now, hyper-aggressive already is a very good ability. However, if you factor in the Shield Guard Field Marshal from Makeda1, you have something that is terrifying. Johan will be able to, with the fact that he has approximately 9 shield guards in his army, he can control almost entirely where any range fire from the enemy comes from. Not only that, he is able to guide that to exactly the right war beast in order for that war beast to take one ranged fire shot and then trigger hyper aggressive off of that and put himself in a position to completely dominate his opponent with a massive attrition swing. Obviously, Una2 is also a caster that relies on getting the all-important damage spikes, on getting the alphas and taking advantage of her long threat ranges and high burst damage to get a crippling attrition lead. So both of these players are kind of going to be going for the same strategy. Both armies, despite their apparent differences, are fairly similar in that they are focused on a relatively small number of quality models that have high damage output, combined with a particular movement shenanigans and defensive tech that allows them to get into combat. And then also, especially I believe it's the movement alterating effects and movement interactions that both elite lists have is what allows them to get the respective alpha strikes that they so desperately want. And here we go. We've finished deployment now, and Asbjorn has just gone straight into his first turn, and you can see just how quickly these griffins are going to be moving up the board. And we're going to be looking to create probably a war beast concave, utilizing this central obstruction as a bunker for Una2 to hide behind. This will keep her safe from any potential, for instance, Malik Khan related assassination. Frederick asks how many birds that is, and there are a total of 10 birds on this table. 9 of them being Skarsfell's griffins, and 1 of them being a razor wing. I'm just going to go take a closer look at the table so I can map out the exact locations of particular solos and casters to you. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, having taken a closer look at the exact model placement, let's just take a look right now. So on Asbjorn's side, we have Una2 being positioned right here. We have the the Pureblood being positioned right here. This model being the Razor Wing. And all of these other ones right here and all the way through here being the Skarsfell's griffins. We have on either side of the army flanking blackclads, and then we also have tucked away here right beneath his head somewhere next to this particular blackclad right there, the Swamp Gobberchef. The Gorax is trailing just behind the Pureblood, and the Druid Wilder, I believe, is this one right here. Yeah, with the stones forming a triangle, like so. On the Skorne side, we have Makeda herself being positioned quite centrally. We have Orin immediately behind her. And alongside that, the pain handlers. Also, we have the Kreia right here. What other models do we have? Under the relevant defensive models, the Agonizer is also nearby. I believe the Agonizer is right here. And then we have the 4 Scarabs over here with the Min Croak Raiders bringing up the front. So we are just seeing the first turn finish for Asbjorn, having 54 minutes left on his clock, having taken a fairly aggressive stance, just, I would say, 3 inches short of the midline, allowing him to threaten to approximately here. Meaning that Johan now has to find a way to navigate this flock of ravens, this dark horde of just wings and fury tokens that Asbjorn is just pushing up the table. Really feel like Asbjorn may require at some point one of those roulette pushy sticks that they use to collect all the chips, so that he could move his griffins forward in the old-fashioned traditional sense, just to maybe add a little bit more vibe of the impending doom of this incredibly fast list with a large amount of table control and also scarily high damage output, with, as a result, a always present and significant assassination threat. It only takes 2 griffins to kill your caster. Sometimes it doesn't even take that. So Una2, having survived the nerf, I think pretty well. The way she was before the nerf was just utter ridiculousness, because she just defied the rules of the game, which is something that she just broke the mechanics of the game before the nerf. So I think the way that she is right now, she is still a very viable threat. She absolutely has the damage capability to go into even the hardest and tankiest lists, and that's a good thing, because Johann's army actually is a very, very tanky list. And if Asbjorn decides to, at any point during this match, shoot at Johann's army, he will find out just how tough that is. He may even be better off not using a single ranged attack this entire game, just because he stands to lose so much from a potential hyper-aggressive trigger. So Johann playing it fairly conservatively, not wanting to give his opponent an opportunity for a top of 2 feat and alpha strike, with by making sure to stay outside of the threat range of the griffins. This is the kind of thing where, if you are overly confident, you can very easily end up in the threat range of 4 models instead of just 1, and then, based on circumstances and dice rolls, you may lose a particularly valuable piece for no gain, purely because you didn't spend the 1 minute that it takes to just double check once again that all of your threat ranges are measured. So we're looking to drift some shots here from the Mammoth onto these Griffins, which, against the squishiness of the Griffins, might actually do a fair bit of damage, keeping in mind that the Mammoth can boost his blast damage rolls. With a bit of luck, he might be able to get a nice couple of damage spikes, which may or may not help in the following turns in sniping out some of these Griffins. So we're going to be seeing boosted blast damage rolls against these Griffins, with Johann apparently using the funky 12-sided D6 dice for greater statistical variability, showing off just how much of a nerd he is by bringing even nerdier dice to an already nerdy event. But he's not fazed. He is a man who values and appreciates enhanced probabilistic diversity in his dice rolling. So whilst the rest of us are stuck here with our lowly and caveman-like 6-sided dice, Johann Durland is blasting into the 21st century with his 12-sided dice. So what we're seeing right now is very careful placement of the scarabs. Now, given the limited shooting that Asbjorn has, these may initially appear to be rather useless in this particular matchup, but the scarabs are very good at contesting, and Johann has an inherently low model count army, which means that it is of crucial importance to have enough models that you can use and potentially sacrifice for those all-important control zone contestations. The Scarabs are perfect for this because they are throwaway. They're also great because they help mitigate shooting, but if you go up against an opponent that has no real shooting to speak of, then you can use them for other purposes, and in that case you will use them for scenario purposes, and you will use them to interrupt your opponent's plans at a few critical points in the game, and the longer the game goes on, the more important they can be, because in the late game, say you are in a position where you only have 2 models left to activate, and one of those models has to spend its activation on killing one of these little scarabs, so that could save you from losing on scenario. And the same goes for the Croak Raiders, who apparently appear to serve little function in this particular army, but actually, after having talked with Johan myself, it was revealed that they are actually his favorite Makeda1 feat targets, allowing him to put models in precisely the right position to then be feated on, and to completely deny his opponent any chance of removing those models, which can be a potentially game-winning scenario power play, because the invulnerability granted by the Makeda1 feat allows the Croak Raiders to not only survive the retaliation, but not only contest in your own turn, but also contest at the end of the opponent's turn, and that can really give you a chance to either equalize a control point deficit that you have, or to gain a significant control point lead, thereby starting the countdown timer on scenario. So Johan's basic strategy is to try and use these screening models that he has positioned up front here to bait Asbjorn into committing. The big deciding question will be, and in this regard the ball will be in Asbjorn's court to dictate the pace of the game, because he does have slightly higher base movement capabilities with the flight and the increased speed, so he's going to be able to control how many models he is going to commit to doing damage to his opponent. The way that the two forces are deployed right now, they are looking primarily to gain an attrition lead on each other. We have a very flat formation from Asbjorn, which means that as soon as something walks into this threat range, he can collapse his forces into particular targets of importance and then eat those, like a flock of birds. Johan's formation is much more focused on keeping a central core, including Makeda and her support staff, most importantly Orin Midwinter. Protecting Makeda and Orin Midwinter are the two big things that this army does very well, and then keeping that bubble going and then pushing that bubble up the field. And then at key critical moments, exploiting the ability of hyper-aggressive to trigger and allow you to shoot one of your beasts forwards and to push deep into the enemy and do a large amount of damage. For instance, taking out an enemy heavy. And so Johan has finished his first turn and has pushed forward reasonably. We're just measuring these threat ranges on the Griffins now, so we're just going to take a top view look to see where she might end up. So it looks like anything in this cone over here looks to be a viable landing site for any potential Griffin incursion. Assuming, of course, that this and this Croak Raider are eliminated, preferably at range, would be my suspicion. Potentially that is something Una, who is standing right over here, might be able to achieve with her gun. Una2 herself actually having one of the best guns in the game. I'm currently finding myself fairly hard pressed to find guns on characters that are better. Obviously Sloane comes to mind, potentially Kalissa comes to mind, and maybe Karchev because of that juicy 10-inch knockdown spray. But other than those contenders, I think Una2 may... well, not only does she have one of the best guns in the game, but she also has the ability to use it and not die. Some warcasters in this game have fantastic weapons at the expense of having said weapon have the invisible subtext of A, use this weapon, B, be assassinated in return. But Una2, she can get away with getting stuck in and doing work personally. And in the later turns, starting turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, that can actually sometimes be a determining factor in the long-term outcome of a game. And having seen the games we've seen so far, we actually do see quite a lot of games going into turn 6 and going into turn 7, potentially even going to time. So the ability to have a warcaster that can do personal work is of great value. So what we're probably going to see here from Asbjorn is a minimal commitment with an attempt at getting a pick of this agonizer right here. I believe that's an agonizer. I'm not sure if it's an agonizer or a Kreia. I always get the two confused. My apologies for that. To me, they both look the same on the table, and whenever I play against Skorne, I treat them both equally. I'm never sure which is which, and they always seem to be close together anyway, so... I'm only a human. So Asbjorn, I believe, is just finding out about the intricacies and the complexities of Johann's army, which is that Johann's army is like a 2,000-ton Rubik's Cube that is hurled at you at great velocity. And not only do you have to solve a Rubik's Cube, but it is a Rubik's Cube that is traveling at great speed towards you and will utterly kill you if it hits you. And that makes it a terrifying proposition to face. It's an anti-shooting list that is designed to crack enemy armor in melee, so it doesn't matter if it's far away from you or if it's close to you, it's more comfortable than you are in that particular position. So it's a really good combination of synergies between casters, units, and the relevant theme list. And that's what makes it so powerful. And the more you look into it as an opponent, the more you try to solve the puzzle, the more complicated it gets, and the more time you lose. This is a very clock-heavy list to play against if you wish to try and solve this chain shield guarding, Orin midwinter magic dispelling puzzle box. So the question is whether or not Asbjorn even wants to solve this Rubik's Cube of ranged defensive capabilities, or whether he's just gonna try and bait Johann into overexposing himself and then going for a massive do or die feat turn. I think if I were in Asbjorn's position, I would feel comfortable going all in on a feat turn whereby I could reliably kill at least 2 out of the 3 of either Molokan the Gladiator and the Colossal. Ideally, I would say probably Molokan and the Colossal, if given the choice. Because although Molokan can be killed without the damage boost from the feat, whereas a Gladiator will be much harder to kill for these Griffins after they've popped their feat. But I think that Moloch presents a higher threat of being able to somehow break out of there and sidestep his way to assassinating your caster. So that's what I would be more scared about. So we see the first Griffin going in here. I'm going to take a look at the top view to see if we can take a look at some damage rolls. Obviously, as has been par for the course, the players have decided to traditionally roll the dice just off the edge of the top-down camera view. No, just kidding. But it looks like we are doing a fair few boxes into the Kreia. Thank you, Rexim90, for letting me know what that model was. It is in fact a Kreia, and it's about to be a dead Kreia. We have two, I believe, one board attack, two board attacks now, and the Kreia is going to go down. But Johan must have expected this because he put the Kreia there on purpose. Obviously, the Kreia was the bait piece. Johan deciding that it was probably in this particular matchup against this particular army that he's facing the most expendable warbeast he has, so he decided to give it out first. So we are seeing a refuge, I believe, from that particular Griffin. And that is going to be problematic for Johan because he does not have the same kind of terrain ignoring capabilities that Asbjorn has with his Una2 list. And I think we're going to see a fairly defensive placement for the rest of these Griffins, largely remaining in place, where they are potentially shifting a few millimeters this direction, a few millimeters that direction. And he is just going to take the free piece that he's given. Oh, we have a triggered sprint. Yes. Thank you, Wrexham. That is correct. It was, in fact, a triggered sprint, not a refuge. My apologies for that. So, obviously, a sprint, utilizing sprint correctly is going to be of critical importance. Now, I think Asbjorn may decide to try and snipe out a few scarabs. But he looks like he's going for it. He's going to try and snipe out a few scarabs and sprint away to safety, or he's just checking the threat ranges. What is this? Yeah, so he's just positioning himself defensively outside of the 10-inch threat range, except maybe of the lead scarab. The lead scarab might potentially be in threat range, but he's not expecting it to do any significant damage. So he's just going to park it over there by that trench. Let's take a look down at the top view to see if he's going to be getting the trench bonus. And as you can see, he's not actually inside the trench. Not being a huge problem, however, because he's not really going to be taking any significant range damage at this point. So it looks like Asbjorn is going to concentrate on the left flank, which would indicate that he is setting up for a feat turn next turn in an attempt to kill the mammoth. If I'm Johan right now and I look at this positioning, I see a flock of birds that are waiting for this huge base to walk into a threat range to a point where you can get I would say at least 4 griffins in to jump on the mammoth. So we have Taproot 1976 joining us just now. And he asked what theme Una2 is playing in, and she is playing in the Call of the Wild theme, meaning that she has a free Wilder, 2 free Blackclads, and a free set of Shifting Stones. And as you can see, he's also shifting some of his some of his griffins, some of his 9 Skarsfell griffins that he has, from the right flank to the left flank, having now in total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 griffins guarding the southernmost flank over here. He is anticipating that Johan is going to attempt to continue moving forward, and that he will be forced into a situation where he has to split his forces in such a manner. He has to take into account the extensive threat ranges, which he seems to be doing, hence the conservative placement. And it looks like he is content to largely ignore these flanking circular zones, knowing that he's going to have a very hard time scoring those. So neither player is really in a very good position to be scoring the circular zones on the flanks, with Asbjorn only having his caster and a unit of shifting stones that are able to actually do the job, and the Skorne of Makeda1 only having the Croak Raiders and the Beast Handlers. Oh, and the Scarabs also able to score those zones. So Johan actually has a slight advantage in the outside zones, but unfortunately, because of the build of his army, he doesn't actually want to spread out his forces too thinly to try and go for the flanking scenario score. He actually wants to stay relatively closely together and have a good peace exchange, whereby he's able to brute force his way through any kind of units or models that the opponent may have, whilst using the additional synergies that he has to outmaneuver his opponent. So Asbjorn has shifted the clock now, finishing his turn 2. Having gone first, we are now entering the bottom of 2 for Johan, which means that scoring is going to start at the end of this turn. And so we have 49 minutes on Johan's clock, which means that he looks like he's going to be getting somewhat of a clock advantage. I've personally seen Johan myself play some fairly quick turns. He tends to be quite decisive in situations like these, and has usually has a list of ideas already in place and arranged and decided upon before his turn even starts. So we may be looking at a small clock advantage beginning to build for Johan. Asbjorn obviously wanting to take the extra time to take care that all of his positioning was absolutely perfect, and that he was not going to get caught in any potentially long threat ranges and potential alpha strikes. So now we're going into the bottom of 2. Johan has come to the realization that he probably is not going to be getting a Griffin this turn in return for his Kreia that he sacrificed last turn. The Kreia proved to be too tempting a piece of bait for Asbjorn to pass up, but the sprint on the Skarsfell Griffin actually allowing it to reposition to a point whereby I don't think Johan has a chance of being able to destroy that. However, there is a chance maybe that that particular Griffin may be within a walking range of the Mammoth. But then that would mean that Johan is knowingly exposing his Mammoth to the combined might of all of these models, which includes the caster and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Griffins. which will mean a dead colossal for sure. I believe that this one is the only razor wing griffin. If it becomes relevant, we will find out later. So Wrexham asks if we might be looking at a trample here, and this could be, I think you may have a very good point, because I believe by eyeballing that 5 inches should get him to about here. So we may, or maybe till about there. So we may very well be looking at these extra 3 inches being from a trample. And the question not being whether or not this is within 2 inches right here. Yeah. So Johan seems to have, no, he's still in the process of measuring some ranges. I believe he is checking to see how viable it is for him to get some models into this little strip in order to contest Asbjorn's rectangular zone. I believe this particular scarab may be able to do it with a run, but it looks to be a very, very close call. So I'm not quite sure if he's going to be able to make that measurement. We'll see now during the scarab activation. They are probably just going to try and be as annoying as possible. And we may potentially be seeing a Makeda1 feat here with very strategically placed scarabs as feat targets to ensure that there are no landing sites. I think what we're seeing here is a so he's bringing out the proxy bases. And this is a very essential thing to do against Una2, is to use the proxy bases to make sure that when the feat is coming for you, the Una2 feat that is that you deny every single landing spot you can to those griffins. With Makeda1 being able to take this to the next level by making those individual models that block the landing spots essentially unkillable. So not only are you able to block the landing sites, you are able to prevent the Una2 player from clearing those landing sites and still landing in them anyway. And if you do that, and I think we're about to see this is a particular strategy that Johan has done before with this list, which is going to involve a circular ring of croak raiders around his mammoth. And he's going to deploy them right there, probably in that particular formation. He's doing them double stacked in order to make sure that this entire section of the board becomes a no-go area for griffins. So he's gonna assemble them in such a way that there's not going to be a single landing site, and then he's probably going to use them for feat targets. And he's just checking. Obviously, he has to make sure to move this croak raider. If Johan forgets about this croak raider because of the way that his line of sight is, then this entire plan is about to go tits up. He's just checking to make sure to choose a position whereby the mammoth is towing into the circular zone. That is a very smart choice because that is one of the main jobs of Colossals in SR2017 and in pretty much all scenarios is to take advantage of their ability to contest 2 zones at the same time, or score 1 zone and contest the other. So just very carefully placing the rest of his croak raiders in the aforementioned anti-griffin deployment screen, and those are all going to look pretty good in terms of placement there. May be able to maybe there might be one space here for a griffin. The question of whether or not this is enough distance to get into melee with the Colossal will be another question entirely. But I don't think Johan is going to have a problem with allowing one Griffin into his Colossal. In fact, I would argue that he may potentially leave one landing site open and allowing this Griffin to go here just to bait Asbjorn into committing Griffins. And if he does that, we might be seeing a jackhammer clear, which might be something that Asbjorn is not considering right now. Like I said, this Makeda1 list has a lot of tricks, and there are a lot of abilities in this list that can be utterly game-breaking if they happen at the wrong moment and you fail to take them into account. I mean, we are talking about hyper-aggressive at the exact wrong time to just lose the game immediately. We are talking about exactly the right shield guard at exactly the wrong time, whereby, you can, that all-in gamble that you did to try and kill that Skorne war beast just failed massively because you forgot to take this into account. And there are many rules like this, and one of them is the jackhammer, and that is a very potent piece of anti-jamming technology. Yeah, so Frederick is correctly asking the question whether or not that potential landing spot that is open right here is even within melee range. The Griffins obviously having only one real disadvantage, and that being the very short length of their little claws. So that is going to have to be a very precise measurement. So what we're seeing right now, I believe, is the trample being resolved and the bolt attacks going into the Griffin. Johan taking care to boost all of his attack rolls. And there we go, there's the 6. Gets the 6 when he needs it. And I think he's going to boost his damage roll and just explode this chicken into a cloud of feathers right here. There we go. That's right, Frederick. We do have some confirmed animal abuse on this stream. The first of 9 Skarsfell's Griffins is exploded into a cloud of feathers by the mammoth, having used 2 boosted bolt attacks after a trample. So I believe that blue wizard-looking thing behind the mammoth right now to be Orin Midwinter. I personally have seen Orin's fantastic ability to win Johan a game outright by being able to Arcane Vortex a telekinesis at exactly the right time. Oh, he had Rush. Yes. So Lord Randalt very correctly has observed that the mammoth probably was able to go that distance because he just had a rush cast on him, thus allowing him to have to only spend 3 focus in boosting the his regular initials. So small correction there. I believe the mammoth has 3 focus on him now. Or 4, it is a little bit hard to see, but I believe it's probably 4. And so we have a proxy base just being dropped down there, probably looking at a measurement for Malik Khan. So we have a counter blast going up. And I believe we're about to potentially see a feat. Just allow me to check the table real quick. And there we go. There is the Mollicon is just measuring the threat ranges and positioning. So the Mammoth did indeed have Quicken on it, and it also has 3 Fury currently. Makeda herself is camping 3 Fury. The bunker has been assembled, and some viewers on the stream seem to be under the impression that the Mammoth is about to die, and it doesn't seem as if Johan had popped his feet. I will wait until he finishes his turn in order to ask him. This may have just been, it looks like a conscious decision. We are about to check. So, ladies and gentlemen, it does in fact appear that Mr. Johan Dillon has just forgotten to feed, and having realized this, he is now taking a relaxed arms up seat in his chair, safe in the knowledge that he is about to take a huge beating from Asbjorn, and potentially probably will not get assassinated, but he's about to enter a whole world of hurt, having spent so much time perfectly and meticulously assembling his anti-griffin bunker, and then subsequently forgetting to pop the feet to ensure the survival of those 4 scarabs that we see here, and those 5 croak raiders I believe we see over here, that were specifically placed very precisely in order to stop these griffins from going in. So all of that is about to go down the drain, and Una2's feet is about to get popped, and a Mammoth is about to get melted off the table. Someone move the camera. I will go and find out to see what happened with the other 2 games. So, having checked in on the other 2 games that are currently running, we have I believe we have a Signar into Retribution match going on the next table, where Mr. Derlin's teammate appears to be leading 2-1 on control points, and on the far side we have a game where Asbjorn's last teammate appears to be leading 2-1 on control points. So this really appears to be, and both of those games are still ongoing, and the positions look the board positions look fairly equal. So we still have a game going here, and we are going to be seeing just what shakes out of this whole adventure here. Obviously, Johan having brain farted in the most spectacular fashion, forgetting the feat that was so critical to his attrition and scenario success. I mean, Had he remembered to feed, chances are that Asbjorn would not be able to do pretty much anything this turn in terms of real significant damage, and he would have had to stall out and pull back for another turn, which, to be honest, he could actually quite easily do. Johan does not have a particularly aggressive scenario position, so there's no threat of Johan suddenly going and taking a lead. So, but however, Asbjorn really has to watch out now. The fact that his opponent has forgotten his feet may get him into a position where he gets greedy. And if he gets greedy now and he overextends, then, and he leaves, for instance, his caster in a position where he may be touched, if Johan sees an opportunity, he will go for it. So Asbjorn could very easily get himself assassinated if he doesn't watch out. If he goes in too hard for the kill here, and he advances Una2 too far up the board in order to try and get that one extra model in feet range, then we could be looking at a deadly counterattack. So we have the one single Croak Raider sent over to the rectangular zone that has been duly sacrificed in his role to contest. And we have the first Griffin going in. So we're just going to take a look at the top view. So we have one Griffin having gone in on Malikan. I can definitely a situation where another Griffin would fit quite nicely right in here. Although I'm not sure that this distance right here is enough. So I believe we are seeing a spray from the Pureblood. And that is going to roll some damage on the Agonizer. Killing Arn Midwinter. So Arn Midwinter was just sniped out by a Pureblood spray along this line. The Scarabs seem to have survived the spray. And our Midwinter, who was standing back here, has been sniped out. And what this model was, I will just check. Oh, I believe that was the Agonizer. Yeah, I think the Agonizer and our Midwinter were just removed from the table. Rexham asks whether Circle have a Living Warbeast theme, and apparently they do. And apparently it's called Call of the Wild. And I'm not sure what the exact theme bonuses are, but at the very least you can find yourself getting, let's see, 8, 11, 15 free points. So that's not bad. It seems to have adequate support solos as part of the army. So, and a +1 to the starting roll. There you go. So we are seeing the attempted removal here of the Scarabs. Sorry, of the Croak Raiders. And I believe the attempted shot at this Croak Raider was shield guarded to the Scarab. And I think this may be where Asbjorn finds out that his opponent's army is a little bit, even though it looks very squishy, these screening models here out front, they are actually surprisingly hard to remove. and he may not get as much work out of this turn as he thinks. The deployment of Johann's forces, meaning that Asbjorn is going to have to he's not able to land in a position to take out 3 or 4 models at a time. He's going to have to land his Griffins in such a way to clear the front models, and then he has to land another Griffin to clear the next set of models, and then can he land a third Griffin. So we do see a second Griffin indeed going into Molokan. We're going to go and switch to the top view to take a look at the damage boxes. We see that the feat has been popped, so these are all Una2 feated attacks that we're seeing here, hence the quite sickening amount of dice. Ooh, that is a hefty damage roll. Putting about 9 boxes onto Molokan, I believe. 10 boxes. The second attack misses with a double 1, which is unfortunate. And the third attack goes in, and once it rolls average for damage, which will be doing another 6 boxes, I believe. And then we have, I believe, one last attack with a very good damage roll here, and we may be looking at a dead Molokan. No, we're not. 3 boxes left. He has one more attack, however, and this damage roll will be enough. Yep, that is enough to remove Molokan, ladies and gentlemen. That is a huge attrition swing, and Johann is going to have a hard time coming back from that. And it's only going to get worse from here on in, because the large majority, a large flock of birds going on all over here have yet to activate, and there being another one over here. So we are about to see Asbjorn. Oh, there we go. So indeed there was a landing zone right there, which was potentially on purpose as a part of a clever ploy by Johann to trap a Griffin inside some feated Makeda1 feated Croak Rangers, and that would potentially have worked out very well were it not for the fact that Johann managed to forget said feat and is now having to deal with some very serious issues. So I believe we have the Razor Wing just flying in to provide the bonus. Oh yeah, so the Razor Wing did the flying trample slice attack, and is able to take out all of the Croak Raiders, screening the Mammoth. And now it really does look like the game is about to be over, in that we are about to see a whole bunch of Skarsfells and just descend on this Mammoth. And I am taking bets to how many Griffins it's going to take to kill this Mammoth. So ladies and gentlemen, in the chat on Twitch, why don't you let me know how many Griffins it will take to kill this Mammoth. So the first Griffin has gone in and is starting to unload on the Mammoth now, and we're going to be, it's a fairly decent damage roll, and I believe we're looking at about, so that was 4 boxes. And an awful damage roll right there, doing nothing regardless of all those dice. So we're gonna keep buying attacks here and seeing how this goes. Obviously Hand of Fate also playing into the game here. We have another 4 boxes going. This is ooh, wow, there we go. The 665 for the damage roll coming right up, doing a whole bunch of damage. I think that's like 12 damage in one hit or something. My goodness, really seeing the Hand of Fate just go to town. The dice spikes here on these damage rolls are just going crazy with this extra dice from Hand of Fate. And the fact that he is able to, there we go, that's another fantastic damage roll. And I mean, look at this. I mean, we are seeing a single griffin just wreck this mammoth. Absolutely wreck this mammoth. A mammoth having lost 2/3 of his boxes. I mean, that's like 35 damage or something you just did with one griffin, right? Against a quickened mammoth. So we have some guesses by the initial guesses coming in at 3 griffins from the audience here, but having seen those dice rolls just now, people are quickly adjusting their estimate to 2 griffins, and I gotta be honest with you, I would not be surprised if this second griffin that comes into this colossal is the one that does the job. And if that happens, then it really is going to be the end for Johan here, which is a shame, because I think we would have had a potentially a very close and very tense back and forth attrition game. But when the pressure is this intense and when you're at the end of a long day of gaming, it can sometimes, these lapses in concentration can sometimes happen. And the question is there even a chance that Johan can dig his way out of this? And the answer to the question is yes, there is. There is always a chance. His caster is still alive. He has 35 minutes left on the clock. His opponent only has 23 minutes. He has used his feat, and Johan still has a very chunky war beast in the Gladiator. He has enough models to contest in order to prevent from instantly losing on scenario, and he has a warcaster with 2 shiny, sharp swords. The question is whether or not he'll be able to utilize those pieces to stop the scenario bleed and slowly but surely claw his way back into the game, like the game that we saw in round 2 between the Belgian and the French team, where we saw an incredible matchup between a Denegro-1 Ghost Fleet going into a Karchev list, and the Karchev list finding a way to claw its way back from a 5-1 control point disadvantage to tying it up, or to almost tying it up to 6-7 control points, and forcing the opponent into under 1 minute left on their death clock. So the birds are now going in. And it happened so quickly that I even missed it. The second bird went in and just completely wrecked the mammoth, and now we are seeing more birds start to pour into Johan's side of the table. And this is every player's worst nightmare, having 2 of your most important pieces taken from you so quickly, and then also having to deal with a massive flock of birds just taking huge dumps on your army from a great height. Oh, there we go. Okay, my apologies. So it was in fact the third bird that killed the mammoth and then sprinted forward into this position here. There we go. And so now we are seeing the griffins coming in to clear some of the scarabs and doing a good job, having cleared these two right here, and also opening up more landing spaces here and here to continue killing more scarabs and thereby opening up more landing spaces. So we are looking at a fluff damage roll right there, and he's going to try and kill this little scarab over here, which he successfully does. And so let's take a look at the map right now. In terms of scenario, we are going to be looking at a 1-0 advantage because Una2 is scoring this particular rectangular zone. And other than that, and there we have the concede. Johan has realized that his position is untenable. Yes, Fat Colby, at this point in the game, Johan only has a gladiator left, having just lost the Molokan and the mammoth to the Una2 feated griffins. He has 3 of those griffins inside his friendly rectangular zone, and he realized the fact that he he had no chance of being able to fight his way through that many griffins and not just immediately die to assassination in the next turn. So that concludes this particular game. I will check on you to see how the other games in the series are going. It appears the other two, one of the other games has wrapped up, and we are going to see if already there is a result. Let me check for you.
Det är inte frågan om hur många attacker vi behöver. Jag chargear gratis. Det blir så träffa. Men får jag kan kasta upp Fadewalker kan jag backa 5 minuter. Eller backa med sidestep. Och jag kan boosta i efterhand också. Jag kan ju chansa också. Jag har ju future size. Yeah, but just Johan didn't Carnage fick in. My hand is power. You got it. Det behövs bara träffa en 8 tror jag. Ja. Ja, det gör vi nog.
So it looks like that Johan's teammates are going to be joining him in defeat. The second game of the series also having wrapped up, thereby making Team Ragnarok the winner of this particular series and going on to round 4 as probably one of the strongest teams in contention here. We are going to be seeing a very interesting finals here for this 2017 ClogCon team tournament, and we may be looking at a Norwegian team to take the victory. So this has been all for round 3. We are going to be going for a short break, and we are going to be giving you the next round as soon as possible. I will go and find out when that is, and and then hopefully I will be able to see all of you back here for round 4 of this very exciting team tournament. My name is George Busher, and I've been your host, and I want to thank all of you for watching, and I will see you very soon. Thank you much. Thank you very much.
Men det är därför jag känner att jag behöver komma upp med 2 så i alla fall vad jobbar med det. Då köper jag lite tid i alla fall. Jag räknar med att det är risk att jag blir jammad, men jag är upp med 2 poäng innan jag blir jammad så har jag ganska mycket tid att köpa mig lös. Du kan inte svara de här heller. Så du får inte poäng så fort i alla fall. Sen vet jag inte, Mammeten kan ju ta sin i base och dodga in gång i alla fall. Han har ju bulldoze så då kan han ganska lätt se till att ta sin base. Det är jag som inte får missa, det är det som är. Om jag spelar helt perfekt så har jag nästan okej game, men minsta misstag så är det. Du har råd att missa, du kan tappa ett par gånger utan att köra. Sen vet jag inte, jag tänkte, det är så stor och högt upp. Jag tänkte inte att jag skulle kunna sprinta bak igen. Jag tänkte, det där kliar om jag får en fågel för det. Så fick jag den ändå där. Det är huset är väldigt bra för dig. En skog hade varit ännu bättre med ett hus. Jag funderar på om vi ska spela utanför teamen. Det är helt övertygad att det är bättre. Och jag har Extoller, Gremlin Swarm. Det bästa contestet finns som du kan få. Makeda1 spelar Gremlin Swarm. Sen jag har ju en Helter Destroy på allt med video jag tycker funkar. Det är det jag tänkte först. Jag försökte la på buffarna på den så jag bara, men har jag styrt för crit pitch här eller så spirit den. Det är man får chansen. Man har på buffarna på samma ställe. Det har jag gjort så bra någon gång att jag får krossa spiriten på den som har alla buffarna. Därför jag hoppade att du inte skulle fint att prata. Ja, det kanske skulle jag bestämt. Ja, mycket där. Crush.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, just had to come back to let you know that the next round, the round 4, the finals of this team tournament, will be taking place at 8 o'clock, it being 6:20 now. So we will see you all in an hour and a half. Okay? So 8 o'clock Central European time. Tune in again to watch the finals of the 2017 ClogCon team tournament. This has been George Busher, over and out. We'll see you later. Bye bye.